Part of what makes a case interesting is the unique personalities and personas of the perpetrator themselves. Across my channel, we've seen various characters embodying the coldness of a sociopath, the calculativeness of a psychopath, and the sturdiness of a brick wall. But I've got to say, the perpetrator in this case we're going to explore today is an absolute wreck, and I'm 100% certain that you will agree with me. What you're about to witness is an individual who is a walking contradiction. She portrays herself as this altruistic individual, but her horrendous actions speak otherwise. Just to give you a glimpse, this is 42-year-old Sarah Boone, who many would describe as a Karen. Now, that word choice alone should already give you some idea of what we're going to be inspecting here. Let me take you back to the beginning of such an odd and equally horrendous case. Back in February 2020, Sarah phoned 911 to alert them that her boyfriend, George Torres Jr., was dead. Her reason for his death is as believable as Santa Claus. She told the very much level-headed and experienced officials that his death was merely an accident. She described the night as just a typical night of playing puzzles, painting, dancing with dogs, and playing hide and seek. When I heard that list of activities she was spewing out in a rather orderly and chronological manner, the first thing in my head was, what adults play hide and seek as a normal, typical day? But okay, that's not the worst that we're going to be judging here. The hide and seek game is what we're going to be putting the magnifying glass on, because 42-year-old George died inside of that small suitcase, zipped shut from the outside, and he suffocated to death. The reason is shocking to comprehend. Sarah's story was that she basically helped George get inside the suitcase to hide, and then she zipped it, went upstairs to fall asleep, and did not realize George was still in there. All the while, George suffocated to death. She specifically stated that before leaving him, she left the suitcase unzipped far enough so that two of his fingers were emerging from outside of it. First of all, I have a lot of questions regarding this mess. Main one being, how the heck is it a hide and seek game when you're helping the person into their hiding location? Now, that alone did not make sense to me, and Sarah will soon riddle us with more inconsistencies, lies, and quakery. We will also momentarily discover that this was no innocent game of hide and seek that she claimed. This was something quite sinister. When the police were at the scene of her house, I believe they sensed this woman was highly suspicious, just right off the bat. So much so, they told her to basically F off and sit somewhere outside in the corner. There were so many instances of her acting restless and almost annoyed while waiting outside her house. She repeatedly asked to go inside and grab something, which the officer promptly refused. It's protocol, and perhaps they saw her repeated attempts to go inside as a sign of wanting to tamper with evidence. In the end, Sarah will prove to be her own demise because of a very telling piece of evidence she had on her phone, which would throw any accidental aspect of this case into the garbage. Sarah was brought into questioning the next day. What made this interrogation quite amusing was that the detectives visibly disliked Sarah, especially the female detective, because she was disputing her left and right. And I mean, who wouldn't, with the evidence they had against her? So during the interviewing process, Sarah was initially holding on to the BS story of them playing stupid games that caused him to accidentally die. She said that during this night they were both drinking, and she sort of brings it up as a means to appear more oblivious to the events that night, to paint this new narrative that she absolutely had no rhyme or reason as to why she left that man inside the suitcase. But the officials stopped her right there and reminded her that They were noticing discrepancies already with her stories because when they asked her on the scene, she explicitly stated that she wasn't drunk at all and that she absolutely did not pass out. Exposed, Sarah shifts the focus more so on George's drinking habits, insinuating that this time he was the one who sometimes didn't know how much was too much for him. Regardless, she described the relationship between her and George as good and that they rarely had fights. She kept using the word choice, good, to describe the night he died as well, saying that they had a good time and that they had good times in general. The detectives then confronted her about there being good times when they pointed out that not so long ago she called the police on George to report domestic violence. She hesitated, but then narcissistically goes on about how she was the best thing that ever happened to him and that she knew him better than he even knew himself. Yeah, she really said that. It was quite strange to me how much she was emphasizing the care she had for him. It was almost as if she was convincing the officials that she cared too much about him. Why would she go out of her way to hurt him? In fact, she claims it was she who made him into a better person. The detectives were not fazed. This prompted Sarah to switch up her stance even further on the relationship being a-okay. She begins to paint him as this initiator, implying that he would come at her and instead of fighting back, she would run upstairs to escape him. He would be the one going to jail all the time and she would be the one always bailing him out and accepting him with open arms. But witnesses, including her own ex-husband, claimed that Sarah wasn't all this rainbow and sunshine she was claiming to be. She had a drinking problem associated with violent outbreaks and tendencies. And even neighbors confirmed this as well. The interview shifts to focus on that violent aspect of her when they inform Sarah that George's body had bruising and marks that definitely occurred that night he died, and she was definitely the last person with him. Sarah continued to adamantly deny any wrongdoing to the point that the detectives even had enough of her. They then just get right to the point and bring out the most chilling and incriminating evidence against her, the alleged game of hide and seek. They mention that suitcase and directly ask her if she's put people in the suitcases before. She denies this, and then the officials had enough of her. They pull out the ultimate piece of evidence and ask her if she remembers making any videos on the phone that night she was with George. The second Sarah tried to act all clueless, the female detective whipped out a laptop which stored the most incriminating video that I've ever seen. The video itself is quite haunting to not only watch but listen to. What we see is Sarah holding the camera, holding the phone, facing the upside down, completely zipped tight suitcase. And inside the suitcase, we hear a muffled male's voice begging to be let out of the suitcase and repeatedly saying that he cannot breathe. In the video, there are no laughs or giggles or a sign of a good time. A very much conscious Sarah is heard swearing at him while he is struggling inside the suitcase and while he is struggling to stay alive. He is struggling to stay alive inside a zipped tight suitcase, by the way. The video proves that there's no opening whatsoever. There's no fingers of his emerging out of the suitcase. So that was an entire BS that Sarah said. And she's even heard telling him that him not being able to breathe is how she felt when he was cheating on her. So what about this? What about this sounds accidental to you guys? Because to me, this was highly intentional, and the detectives definitely saw her as super guilty. They arrested her on the spot, by the way. So clearly, Sarah and George's relationship was a complete mess, and I'm not going to sit here and say who was better or who was worse, because I really don't know all the specifics at this point, but from what we can see, like Sarah is riddled with, Sarah is truly evil. Not only is she evil, she's highly narcissistic, and she is very concerned for her own image. Because when he died, she said, please don't tell George's family about this. She was very, from the get-go, she was very concerned about her own image. And to this day, she's still concerned about her own image. Like, she has no remorse. So honestly, she's as evil gets. So yeah, the relationship could have been tainted by domestic abuse, drinking, infidelity, whatever, but that does not change the fact that, you know, Sarah definitely was no innocent angel. She had and has a lot of issues. So this case is currently active, and some people are saying that she will claim to be a battered woman. I can't wait to see what her defense will say, because the Suitcase video that she made on her own phone will not in any way, shape, or form help her case on painting her as this individual who was forced to do this due to being battered or due to being a victim. I mean, it was 100% deliberate. She absolutely stuffed an entire man into the suitcase and zipped it all the way shut. I mean, what else could explain the bruising on him? Or she tricked him to go inside? I don't freaking know, honestly, how she was able to get a whole human to agree to go inside the suitcase. Unless he was heavily intoxicated, but he seemed to be very much conscious when he was begging to be let out. Just let me know what y'all think about how he got into the suitcase. All I know is that Sarah definitely was the one who made him go in there. It's an active case from what we can see so far. Sarah hates being closed up from society and not having any control. She is a complete and looks like and acts like a complete Karen. Lawyers have dropped her case because of her difficult and obnoxious personality. She has even written letters to the judge complaining about everything under the sun. Well, in my eyes, she's guilty as F, and I hope she gets found guilty and sentenced to life in prison or death. She's her own demise. I mean, the nerve of her to just think she can make up this stupid story and explain someone's accidental death and think she could just go on her way. Laughable and ironic. I hope y'all found this video informative, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting content.